Welcome back to the McSherryStudio, and today I'll be demonstrating how you can go from this to this. Okay, so here's the full reference that I'll be painting from. It's plaited onions. So this is the way they're presented in markets all over France, at least, that I've seen. So a nice bunch of French onions, and now I'll show you the materials that I'll be working with. So I'm going to be using a limited palette, so let's have a look at that now. Okay, so here are the paints I'll be using, all Winsor & Newton Griffin Alkids. I just like those because they actually have the liquid already in them, so they've got a kind of a drying agent, I suppose the medium already mixed in. But they work well for me, but they could be any brand as long as they're sort of good quality paints. Okay, so we have here titanium white, cadmium yellow pale hue, permanent rose, cobalt blue, ivory black, and burnt sienna. So this is my limited palette. This is what I call the McSherry process palette because it's based on the printer's process palette. Okay, so based on the printer's colours. I've got a burnt sienna on there, which is not like the printer's colours, but I have it in there for the chromatic darks and the darkest darks, that kind of thing. So let me move this off, and there's my rag. Always have a rag with you. And here are my brushes. So short, flat, brights are the main ones. Let's have a look. It's hard to get them to stay on the palette. There, you can see them there. So you can see that one there. It's about the width of my finger there. So it looks about sort of, I don't know, 12 mils or something like that. So short, flat, bright there. Around number 6 and around number 1. Okay, for detailing. Right, so there are my brushes, and I'm using terps as well. So you can see it there. Mucky looking terps, but that'll do. So let's have a look at what I'm painting on. Okay, so this is my workspace here. You can see the reference there. You can see the palette. This here is a 6mm MDF panel, okay, which has been gessoed. It's been painted on before, and then I've gone over it with, it was a failed painting, so I went over it with the gunk that was at the bottom of my solvent dish, and let it dry, and I've gone over it with a sort of a pale sort of manila colour. I won't need to do a wash for this painting, okay, so I'll work straight onto that. Okay, so let's get going and start with a drawing. Okay, so let's start painting. So let me grab some burnt sienna, and a bit of blue, make a dark that I can use for the drawing. Okay, so first of all, I'll give myself a centre line. I think that would be helpful. And we can work off that. Okay, so with the centre line there. And let's get in a general shape. But first of all, I want the composition to come up to about there. And for the onions, just make sure with the onions, I want the onions to come to about there because I need room for the shadows. So I'll put that line there. Before we get back to the brushes, a quick reminder, don't forget to hit like and subscribe and drop a comment. I love hearing what you're working on. It keeps the community growing and helps others find these video lessons too. If you'd like some extra resources, check out the links just below. I've got ebooks that take you step by step through oil painting, merchandise like t-shirts and aprons, perfect for keeping the paint where it belongs, and prints of my own work. And you'll even find original oil paintings if you'd like a unique piece for your wall. Every bit of support makes it possible for me to share these tutorials for free, and I can't thank you enough. Okay, let's get back to the demo. Something like that. So if we put in the halfway mark, the onions are going to be here and the leaf arrangement is going to be here. Okay, so let's get in a general shape. So maybe about there, and then there's a kind of a trapezoid shape, isn't there? It kind of goes up there like that. That's where the string is there. need that to come down a little lower. And then that's the general shape there. And then we've got the string, probably comes up to about there. And then the leaf arrangement, don't know what else to call it, comes up there like that. There's a bit there. There's a big kind of spray of leaves, isn't there? So that goes up there, and then up there like that. That there. I don't want that to come above that, really. There's the nail or the hook on which everything is hanging. There, that'll be fine. I don't want it to go up any further than that, really. I did put a line in there. I seem to have gone up a little bit further, but it's possibly not such a problem. We can change it if it looks a bit too wrong later. So there. That's the general shape of the actual solid objects. And now the shadow. The shadow comes down to about there, down there like that. Drawing in straight lines and angles. I'm not drawing curves. You sculpt curves, you don't draw them. Okay, so that's maybe there like that. And drawing, painting indeed, is all about sort of making a mark and correcting it anyway. So don't just try and get it as accurate as you can to begin with, but there is room for change. Okay, so then there's a bit of a triangle of dark there. Put it there, and then we've got two bits coming out of there, and then got a leaf flying away to the right there, and then the shadows come up by the onions there, and then there's a triangle there, and then a shadow there. I think that seems to be about it. Now the weight is a bit off to the right, so let me just see if I can sort of get some more weight and the left a bit. Okay, and then put in a line there for that's division between those onions there. There's a dark rectangle there coming up there, and that shapes the onion in the middle there. Okay, and then we've got this onion here, and then we've got that there, and that can come down a little bit further there, and that onion is kind of partially hidden. Okay, so we've got a start there. I think that can come out a bit further. There. Right, that'll get me started. So the first thing I'm going to do is do a little bit of a Notan. So a Notan being a tonal sketch rather than a linear sketch. Okay, so I've got my linear sketch. Let's put in a tone now. Okay, there like that. That can go in there like that. I'm just using burnt sienna here. There. And that's all kind of dark there. It comes across there. And then that's all coming along there. And then we've got leaves. And then there's that dark part there. Okay. And then we've got some shadows underneath the onions there. We've got a dark in there. Okay, dark there. Right, yeah, that looks reasonably good. Maybe I'll do a couple of adjustments here to add a little bit of blue into that mix, so I can sort of make sure. I definitely want that to come over slightly to the left. There. Up there. Little line there. I can come out there like that. And then that onion sort of pushes into the top of that. onion there, comes up there, and around there like that. There's the gap between those onions there, it's nice and dark. Dark there. Okay. That comes across the top of that onion there, and then there's a dark there. That's not too bad. That onion's a little bit big then in that case, so it's going to push that up. Dark there. This onion can come out a little bit. Okay. Now I'm going to put in some darks, which provide me with the bones of the painting. So burnt, sienna and blue. Let's put in some darks. So dark along there, that's definitely dark. There. That can be brought across there, and then there's that dark up there. The shadows are very, very dark in this, so let's bring that down, across. Okay. Those leaves can go in sort of later on, over those shadows. And then that's quite dark. Definitely dark there. There's that big dark rectangle there. Okay. A dark there. Coming down. And a dark there. That enables me to see where I am in this painting. Right, let's make up some onion colour. Being kind of a russet red. So red plus yellow plus a little bit of blue. And more yellow. And that gives me that kind of golden colour. Now I need some shadow of that, so I'm going to take a little bit of black. So back to basics, back to my initial palette. So that can give me a little bit of darkness. And I can start by putting in some of these shadow areas there. Across the bottom of that onion. Yeah, I might add a little bit of red to that dark and a bit more yellow. There, and across the top of that onion there, around there, here, and this one is quite dark. I think that I might actually add in that dark a little bit more here, there, and the onion colour is redder. Add a bit of red and yellow into that part here. So this one is redder. I'm not going to paint in the whole thing, so because these onions sort of vary across, across the each individual bulb. There, that can come up there. Red across there, the top there. Okay, let's add in some of the greenery. So let's make a green. So yellow plus blue gives a very toxic green, but we can add red, and that will make it natural, adding the permanent rose. Okay, so we can add in this along here like that, there. Push it down there. It's just a block across there. That comes down there like that. That goes up there. Slightly bluer green. I'm going to add a little bit more blue. Yeah. Fill that in. It comes across there like that. and you can see a little bit of that green coming across there. They'd be like mapping points, so I can remember where I am supposed to be in the painting. I can come across there like that, across. Right, now go back to the onions. I'm going to add in a kind of a yellower, paler, I'm going to add a little bit of white and yellow into that onion colour, and then put in some of the lighter parts there, definitely there, definitely there, a bit there, and definitely there, around and there. Okay, now I'm going to make this grey-green background, so I'm going to mix up quite a bit of paint. So it's going to be based around white. It's a very pale colour, white, yellow and blue, and a bit of red, a bit more blue. Make sure I make enough. The benefit of having a limited palette is it's much easier to make your colours up if you run out. If you have a whole array of colours out, it's harder to remember what you actually put in. And then blue. I might put in a touch of burnt sienna just to knock it back a bit from being too bright, too highly chromatic. Okay, so I'm going to make a shadow version of this. So bit of black. We'll start off the shadow. I'm going to add in more blue, bit of red, bit of yellow. I want to bring it down because it is quite dark as a shadow. Add in a little bit more black there. Let's see. Okay, that'll do there. I can add in the shadow first because it's, you say it's an alla Prima painting, so put the shadows in first. You work from dark to light in oil painting. Just add in those. I'm still sort of painting chopping the work instead of painting up to lines. It will all be sculpted in afterwards. There, and that's dark. There, like that. That can go across there. Similarly dark, and that's even darker there. Okay, I'll leave that little spot in there so that I can remember where I am. There's a shadow there. And now to put in the light. Okay, so this is the first pass of the light background, the light grey-green. Oh, we'll have to make a lot more. Okay. Across here. Let's put in the area. I'm going to push my shadow up there a little bit, I think. Let's make some more blue and yellow and a bit of red, plus a little bit of burnt sienna, a bit more blue. A bit more blue. Okay, so we've got a good slightly greenish grey there. Okay, so I want to actually sort of redo some of emphasize it or add into that shadow there. Come down a bit more than I have it, and that could come over a little bit, and also bring that out. Okay, back to the onions, because like any alla Prima painting, we're bouncing around from one part to the other, hopefully bringing it all forward at roughly the same time. Okay, so there's a golden part under that one there, and definitely there, along that sort of papery stem. There a bit. That's redder, that one there. This one's more golden. Along there. And more golden. Shape that onion there. Put in that dark. There. Shape this onion. That's very dark there, and that's, bring that along there, and that's dark. Dark there, and then in that string there's a couple of darks that I can put in. There, dark along there, dark down there, dark in the middle of that set of leaves, that's dark. I'm bringing this forward cautiously. That hook there, put that in later. That's not an important part of the painting though. That can come down there like that. Now there's some light areas on those onions. Light sort of slightly yellowy green. Slightly yellow. I'm going to use some of my background along there. A bit more yellow, a bit of red, a bit more white. Don't want to make it too bright. Don't want it to compete with the highlights. So there are those areas here, for example. There. 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 Definitely there. Okay. And on the stem, there. Okay. Now there's some greys. Let's have a look at these greys. So white plus the three colours. Gives you a nice grey. So that's bluish. I want a bit more red in it there. A bit more yellow. Okay. There, I can see that there, along there. There are a lot of colours being reflected in these onions. There's a nice one here, actually. There. And this twine could use that grey that I've got there. It's kind of a purpley grey, really. And that can go up a lot there. Okay, to the leaves, I'm going to make a brighter green with some yellow. So you can see the top of my head there, can't you? Where am I? There. Okay. So it is slightly yellow. I'm going to actually add a bit more yellow there. And come down here. There. Bit of brighter yellower green there. Definitely here. There. we've got that one already, and we've got some leaves coming through there. Now there's a darker bluer green. I've got some here. In here. Definitely there. Let me actually make it, some of it's quite blue indeed. Especially here. Up there, so we can complete this one a little bit. There. And then it comes up there like that. And across that one, that's bluish. Bit bluish there. Now let's get the really light yellow-green with a little bit of white into it. And a touch of red. It's kind of russet in places as well. Let's have a look, see how that looks. So there, for example, this one coming down here. Along there. I'm not going to make too much of a deal of the leaves. It's not a painting about leaves, but they are the supporting cast, so they've got to, you have got to describe them. Okay, that can go there. And now I want to go in with the background again. Make sure I have enough for the blue green. Maybe a little bit of burnt sienna in there again. Make sure it's grey. It's probably a little bit too dark, that. So, okay. So I can shape my onions a little bit more accurately now. Making sure not to, you know, I'm not sort of trying to describe curves. I'm just sculpting shapes. Close up that gap there. Okay, back to the onions. There's a yellower little part to put in there, across the top of that one. There. There. It goes slightly pinker. There's pink there, and see here, being reflected down that one there. And again, here, I think, because they're reflecting each other as well as the surroundings. Okay, so dark across the top of that one there. Now, I just want to go in with the dark again. There's a flat-bottomed onion there. Push that in there. Push that onion's a bit smaller than I have it. That can come across there like that. That onion there is like that, and then this has a very dark shadow falling across it here, and maybe redder as well on the other side. So I'm going to add some permanent rose to that dark. push that there like that. Okay. And maybe around there too. Now there's a dark yellowy yeah, a bit more yellow, golden kind of colour just down here. I'm going to push that around as well. Actually that's pinker, so around this side. Okay, back to the leaves. Get my dark. Come down there like that to there. Put in that dark down here. Push that dark across. Okay, now there's a very dark. Let's say it's a leaf. It's not a shadow, but coming up here like that. Put that down there, coming across, around there like that, and then it comes down and across that one. And then there's another one here, and that crosses that one and comes down below, and then that's got a definite dark at the end there and a dark there. Right, I'm going to add some blue, and I'm going to intensify this shadow here. Come in there like that, and then the shadow kind of slightly lightens as it goes across to the right. Okay, and make sure I've got some description in here of those darks. Okay, and that's quite dark there. Push that onion slightly up there too. Okay. Okay, so that shadow there could be slightly greener than I have it. As it extends out a little bit, and that means I can sort of push that out where I want it to go. Okay, there, and that can come out there. Now, some of the hairy bits that come out, that stick out the bottom, the roots, are generally a kind of a reddish grey. So I'm going to add a bit more red into that grey that I made up over here, and put in some dabs where I see it. There, down underneath there, and here. That comes across there like that. Okay. Now, make sure I've got that golden colour there, and I can put in a bit of description here. Come across there like that. Slightly more golden there. push that out a little bit. Now, under there, there's a slightly grayer. It's probably reflecting some of the green surroundings. So I'm going to bring some of my background green over to the golden onion colour. And put in some of the reflected light. There, like that. Maybe up there. Lots of reflections going on. There. I've got a little bit more of the grey stuff, the hairy bits. There. I can even see some kind of cool reflection going down there. Okay, back to the leaves. We can put in some more description. Down here. There's a lot going on in those leaves, isn't there? And there's even some bluer, cooler, but lighter blue-greens. I don't want to do too much because it might start competing with the background. Along there like that. And now let's put in, there's a nice light coming along there like that. Up and over there like that. I can see something the same colour as the background in there as well. There. Oh, there's a nice shadow that's describing this one. Need a little bit of darkness into it. And that can come across there like that. And come across there. Okay. Now, into those bits of rope, twine, whatever you call it. Some warmer parts. It's just a jumble, really, of jumble of string. Okay, up there like that. Now there's some lighter parts again. I need to go back in. Moving on from that. So push that lighter part out a little bit. It's more to it than I have. That one's okay. That one's brighter. Brighter than that. And I'm not sort of conforming to the onion shape. Do you know what I mean? I found that a lot of the times that when I was teaching this week that people were trying to describe those vertical sort of direction of the onion. Don't do it like that. Paint it across there like that, rather than sort of trying to emulate the lines. I don't think it works. You get better paintings if you paint across. Same with portraiture, actually. Okay, there, and there's a nice warm glow, probably because it's next to another onion across that edge there. A little bit cooler. A little bit cooler on this one here. I mean, onions really are beautiful objects. Okay, let's put in some highlights just to reward myself. So white, yellow plus a little bit of red. Okay, grab that, put that there, like that. I've just sort of dragged my paintbrush across the shadow, but anyway, I can redo that. That's fine. And then another highlight there, and another one here. Okay, so back into the background. So I'm inclined to make it grayer. So white, yellow plus red. That gives me a grey. Is it what I want? Yeah. Sort of shape those shadows a little bit. I mean, you know me, I always like to sort of sit my objects in a pool of light, so I think that's what I will do, in fact. So this is a cool grey coming down here, and so is this. That can all be similar there. There, cut the edge off that. When I paint fields of colour like this is what I'd call a field of colour. I always like to add in other colours. It just makes the painting more interesting, I think. Makes the actual field of colour, because a field of colour could be just, it looks like a single colour, but you can make it up of lots of different hues, and it does make it look more interesting. So I'm cool and purple and green down here, and let's go more golden, maybe from the other side. And then just bring it down slightly into the other parts. Into there. Okay, let's push that out a little bit. Okay, we need some background to shape those leaves in there. That's got to come there. That can be shaped in there. And we can come back in the latter stages of the painting and add in additional features. You're just working towards clarity. That's the thing. You start out just making blocks, and into those blocks you put your details and adjustments. But the blocks carry the weight of the painting. If you see what I mean. Kind of need to get the blocks as right as you can to begin with. I'm just going to fix that shadow there. Okay, and then bring that down there like that. That's got to come out a little bit. Now, I'd like to bring up the edge of this onion a little bit and actually push it out a little bit. I think you need to just touch more heft. Grab some dark and put that edge there on there. So, now I'm going to get my small brush and start sort of doing some finessing on the leaves, etc. Okay, so grabbing my nice dark again, blue and burnt sienna. It's going to describe the fact that these are knotted or plaited, as I suppose you'd call it, just to give an idea that they are indeed, that there's more to it than just some leaves spreading upwards. I need to push that over a little bit, and that can come down, and I can sculpt that a little bit, sculpt that, and then come around there like that. That's really dark. There. Now there is a bit of a dark here as well that I need to put in. That comes down there like that, and it follows the onion around there. Okay, there's a bit of a grey, probably a reflection of the surroundings there. A good command of greys is a sign of a good artist. That was said to me once by a very, very good artist. We can see some minor reflections there. Now, we're going to start adding in the a more descriptive hairy bits, roots. Okay. That's it. Got little bits of root there. Oh, and around there as well. Actually, that can be. That's the string. You don't need to be sort of overly descriptive of the string, but we can see some of the background through the shadows. Just grab some light parts and okay. Now I want to go into my background again. Now there are some darks that need to go in around here as well. So there's that leaf is casting a shadow there. There's a dark there. Complete that little part there. There's a dark there. Dark there. That comes comes out there. There's a nice grey-green. I'm not sure whether it's the background or another. Yes, possibly the background and behind it. And also, there, we're looking at the background through all the onion stuff, which requires that there be a shadow, not a shadow, but a kind of a dark edge there. Okay, so nice jumble of tones that can go there like that. Now some quite pale leaves. There. Just in this lot, there's some pale blue, bluish green pales in those leaves. Across there. There. And also I want a nice dark along there. Okay. Let's go back into those shadows there and complete that. Okay, there is something that I need to do there. A leaf. Make it nice and dark. That comes across there like that. Comes across to there, and then it descends as a light pale green. Now I want to go into my background again, so let's grab some yellow and white. Maybe brighten that up in the middle there. I told you I like to sit my paintings in a pool of light. There. Make sure that you kind of see it everywhere. And now I'm going to soften the edges of these shadows without doing too much blending. I don't like blending. It tends to kill paintings. If that's done too soon, that's for sure. So I'm just taking a dry brush and just working the edges. Let's see if I can get a warmer, a pinker. I think that would be nice as an addition to the background. So it's all the same tone, but different hues. And the eye of the viewer sort of mixes the colours into a grey. Okay, that needs to be softened as well. more interesting than the actual background that's there. That's my intention. That needs to be softened. Okay. To that hook or the nail, so it's a blue, light blue, or mid blue grey. Down there, around there, and around there too. No need to make too much of that, right? There's a little bit of a highlight. There. What about a bit of whataboutery going on here? What about a bit of blue? A purer kind of blue of the same tone. And we can work that into the background as well for interest value. And now I haven't forgotten about the stringy bits, the roots. I'll get back to them. Okay. Now I'm going to go into the leaves once again. I need to steady my hand here. There, like that. There. I'm putting the paint down, and I've enough paint on the brush to do a couple of strokes. So, I mean, my normal attitude would be strike, and reload. Strike and reload. But I'm used to what I'm doing, so I suppose it doesn't. I just don't feel the need to always be reloading. Getting more paint on the brush. You just make sure you have enough, and you try not to sort of don't brush too hard. Oh, there's a nice dark there. And of course, I'm only seeing these things now. I live in a painting, and I become so over familiar with it. I don't see things anymore. So so that can come down there like that. There, like that. And this can be a bit more substantial. Okay. We can see some of the background again, but no, I've missed. Was it around here somewhere? I think it's not terribly important. And here we've got that graduates out into nothing there. But we do need to put some description of that in. So let's do that together. Okay, and there's some stringy bits being having shadows cast there like that. And now back to the stringy bits again. So dark stringy bits this time. Let's grab some burnt sienna in blue, and I'm going to add in a touch of liquid, which I have there on the side of the palette, just see if I can get a nice viscous but movable mix. Oop, pardon me. So let me have a look. So you can see bits there, that's dark, and some of that is dark in there. Got a bit coming down there like that. Dark there. And then flyaway bits. Little bit of papery darkness there. You can see it all coming around here too. Just split that so it's not such a big thick splodge. Yeah, I've become unable to speak when I'm painting, which is a bit of a shame for an art teacher, isn't it? Yeah, a little bit say like that, and then we've got light parts as well. I'll show you around here. Trying to have a very light touch here. I'm steadying my hand with my other hand. There. And some light greens up here. And a couple of darks, dark but reddish under here especially. Coming up that leaf there. Okay, back into the background. And I can shape some of these so that they're more delicate. There. Push the paint around. Oh, there's a nice dark green. Would be nice along there. Let's put in some lights on the string. I'm not going to do individual knots. It is not necessary. Okay, and then going to go in around my background. Just to help the painting along. Push that around there. Enhance that idea of the pool of light. Okay. I missed the pink. I'm going to put in a bit more pink. Around there. for interest's sake. Push that around. Yeah, that'll do. That's good. No blending. And I did like the blue. Blue helps it. Now, that's a tiny brush to be doing a background with, but when it gets to this stage, I'm always sort of, I get very relaxed. You can probably hear it in my voice. That this is the relaxing part of the painting. For me. You know, the stressful part is kind of towards the beginning. I find when, you know, because things don't always go to plan. I need a little bit of a dark in here. I keep noticing things now that I'm... You think you know something until you try and paint it. Mm-hmm. Or should I say, when you paint things, it. Okay. You know, I could go on all day. You know that, don't you? And into the night. It's just that kind of thing, isn't it? I seldom paint at night. I have done before, but I don't really care for it very much. I like to be sitting on the couch by 9 o'clock, vegetating. I know I shouldn't do it, but that's the way I am. So it isn't blended, it's just a huge amount of brush strokes getting smaller and smaller as you go on through the painting. Okay, so it's as far as I'm going to go now. There's probably loads that I can do. I mean, I'll be looking through this and I'll be thinking, oh yeah, okay, I need to fix that. I need to move that around. I need to add a little bit here and there. I think, but in the main, it's complete. Okay, so I'll just turn it around and show you, and then I'll show you, you know, a clearly recorded part of it. So there are the onions there. Okay, so let's have a look at how it ended. As always, it's the procedure is you do a wash, you do a drawing. These days I do a lot of Notans, which is the kind of a schematic, a tonal schematic. Look it up, Notan. You can even get them as apps for your phone and just see what they do. But it's actually a useful way of checking your drawing and checking your composition before you actually start painting proper. So when you've done the Notan, then you can put the bones of your painting, which is the darks, put those in. Then you do your blocks, and then you put your detailing into those blocks. That's the procedure. Trust the procedure and try not to get ahead of yourself in a painting, because then you can mess things up. Okay, so make sure your drawing is right, checking it with a Notan and doing your blocks checking them that they're right, tonally speaking, and the colours that you want, because the worst way of making mud is making radical changes in your painting. Okay, so there you go. Let's have a look at the final thing, and I'll see you in the next video. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and even share this video, and comment. Comments are great. I love to see comments, and also the YouTube algorithm likes to see that videos are being commented on, and then it pushes them up into the top of the algorithm. I don't know how it works. I'm just an artist. Listen, have a lovely time, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.